Well, hello, Tom.
Hi, Wendy. We finally got together.
We are forging new territory in technology today, so we made it. I am delighted to have you here today, and I want to tell people just a little bit about you, so they know where this conversation is coming from. Tom
Okay.
is an expert in outdoor and wilderness skills. He is a graduate of Case Western University with a BS in electrical engineering and an MBA from Baldwin Wallace. He has been, he worked as an electrical engineer for 18 years before deciding to take a new path and start working in teaching survival skills to people. He's worked with all the greats and still does. He worked with Tom Brown Jr. and recently Ray Wrightsey, who is one of my favorite people in the world. He's a master Maine guide and many, many others. He's taught survival for many years, and that's how we first met. I had him work with a staff of mine in building skills. He's been on radio and television in the Cleveland area and other places, and he's here today to talk with us a little bit about what survival really is in this crazy environment that we find ourselves in, and with the thing that shall not be named. So,
It is
first
crazy
of
out there.
all, yeah, first of all, I want to say that a lot of people's knowledge of survival is a certain person on television who does really gross things with people. And I think that they get scared if they take a class or get involved that they're going to be asked to do something that they don't want to do.
Keep going.
Yeah, let's
You were
keep going.
saying about our favorite British friend.
Yes.
Uh,
And so I want you to start out by telling people your school's approach to survival and kind of dispel some of the myths there.
okay. Well, we teach non-military survival, and just want to say we love our military and armed forces. But the approach we take is we teach the survival that the Native Americans and pioneers used back in the 1800s. And their type of survival didn't use any equipment. They just used what nature provided and what they learned in their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's all you really need.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that, you're carrying your survival kit in your head and not on your back. And that's preferable for me. So
Right.
that's what we teach here at the school. A lot of people also think, well, how does wilderness survival relate to home survival? And it's really all the same. You need the basics of shelter, fire, water, and food.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in the woods, in the wilderness, that's what your objectives are. When you're at home, you're a quarter of the way there. You
Right.
have your shelter, and then you just have your water, your food, and your fire, which is the way to keep warm.
Okay. Excellent. Now, there's a lot of talk right now about survival and preparedness, but what we're seeing on the media doesn't really look so much like anything I've ever done in your classes. So the behavior looks more like panic. So what causes panic?
Panic, it's caused by not having a plan. You know you're in a bad situation, whether, again, in the woods or at home here. You know there's a coronavirus. You know there's a lot of ways to get it, and you know you could die from it. And
Mm-hmm.
you're not really sure what to do.
Right.
But in your mind says you know you have to do something, but you don't know what to do. So you get into that circle, that loop, and that's what causes panic.
Yeah.
So if you have a plan, you know what to do, that'll reduce or eliminate the panic. And on top of that, if you have a plan, panic is gone, and you just follow your plan and enact it.
Right. And one of the things that you told us that it makes so much sense to me is that the number one reason people die in the wilderness is panic.
Panic, yeah, without a doubt. You know you have to do something, don't know what to do.
Okay.
And the way to eliminate that is to plan.
Right.
People say now, is it too late to plan now? Not really. It hasn't. It's a critical situation, but it's not too late.
Okay. I think some of what happens with a lot of people, because I know this happened to me briefly, but because I have more of a framework through, my background in emergency medical technician and the classes I've taken with you, I was able to get it under control pretty quickly and say, okay, calm down. We have to put a plan together here. But I think people get caught up in the what ifs,
Well,
what if we run out of food? What if there's no toilet paper?
that's the big one with the toilet paper, and we can
that
address that
boggles
later
my
on.
mind. Yeah, that boggles my mind.
Yeah. Well, when you're confronted with a situation, the way I suggest people think of what's the worst thing that can happen, or that you think could happen. Then you think of, well, what's the best outcome?
Mm-hmm.
Then think, what's the most likely outcome? And you're going to prepare for that most likely outcome.
Right.
So
right.
it could be better, it could be worse, but you have to prepare for something in between.
Right. Okay. So let's talk quickly about what should people have in place in their home. Oh, we froze again.
There we are. I think we're back.
Okay.
Good.
It says it's still recording. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what should people have. What do we really need? Do we need to clear the shelves at the grocery store from all the canned goods? Like, what do we need?
Okay. Without going into, people should always have some degree of preparedness at all times, because disregarding this situation we're in now, there's always going to be a snowstorm, something that's going to cause a disruption.
Right.
But what do we need? We go back to shelter, fire, water, and food.
Mm-hmm.
In this situation, everyone has a shelter, or most people have a shelter. They have their home. So that's off the list. We need fire. In this situation, it means a way to keep our houses warm, keep ourselves warm.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, we're going into the spring, summertime. So that's not as much of an issue. If you're in an area where it's a cooler climate, you might want to consider, do you have like kerosene heaters, a way to keep your house warm? And again, you're not trying to keep your whole house warm. You're picking one room to keep warm.
Right.
Then we go down to water and food.
Mm-hmm.
You need water. 3 days without water, a person would die.
Mm-hmm.
To stay healthy, the rule of thumb is you need a gallon of water a day per person.
Okay.
If you want to maintain a normal living, and by that I mean washing dishes, flushing toilets, bathing, figure 2 gallons per person per day.
Mm-hmm.
So just figure how many people in your house, multiply that by 2 gallons per day, and how many days you want to be self-sufficient.
Right.
Now, you're going to store the water. Water stores indefinitely as long as the water is pure and you put it in a clear container. But say you want to have water for 6 months, it's not practical to store 2
Right.
gallons per person per day. Have a way to replenish it. And most of us have gutters on our houses. So during a rain, that's going to be a great way to replenish your water. But you will have to have a way to siphon that water into your containers. So you have to think about, how are you going to get it from your downspouts into the container.
And that's for clothing, washing, toilet flushing, that kind of stuff.
And when you purify that water, it's drinkable water.
Okay.
And even though the rainwater is pure to drink, if you would catch it directly on a tarp or whatever, you can drink it directly. If it's coming off your roof, we're having birds up there, and birds do what birds do.
Right.
So you are going to have to purify that water for drinking purposes if it's coming off your roof.
Okay. And the easiest way to do that is just boil it.
Boiling is the simplest, easiest way to do it. There are chemical ways. Typical household bleach, 8 drops per gallon. You put it in a gallon of water, leave it sit for 30 minutes. That water is safe to drink. And there are other ways to purify water. There's devices. I know you and I have talked about it. One of our favorites is called the SteriPen.
Yeah. Do you have one of those? Can you show that?
I do have one right here.
Okay.
This is called the SteriPen. It works off UV light, ultraviolet light, and the hospitals have been using these for years. Now, it does work on batteries. It uses, this size uses a AA batteries. There's 4 of them in here. The way it works, you would have a container of water, either 16 ounces or 32. Button here, you press it once for 16 ounces, twice for 32. You would put this in your container of water. The light goes on for 45 seconds, automatically goes off. That water is now totally safe to drink. It renders anything in there from coronavirus to typhoid to viruses, bacteria, Giardia, Cryptosporidium, safe to drink. So you have your water source.
Let's talk about food.
Okay, food.
We got to get,
I get a lot of questions.
Packages of freeze-dried food that lasts for 45 years, right?
You can get freeze-dried food. I suggest, now freeze-dried food, the price is coming down, but it's not your cheapest form of food.
Mm-hmm.
If you plan to be going on the road or traveling, freeze-dried food is definitely the way to go. If you're staying home and you're watching your budget, you might want to go to the grocery store and get the food that's packaged that you're used to. People are always asking me, well, what type of food should I purchase? And my answer is, what kind of food do you like to eat?
Right.
So if you don't like beans, there's no reason to stock up on beans.
Okay. We've visited that before. I stocked up on beans, and I hate beans, but I did it because I thought it was a good protein. And then
there's things you don't want to stock up on vegetables because that's perishable. This is no time to start a diet. So you want to get things that might be a little higher in fat. Cans of tuna, they're going to last a long time. Rice, a canned chicken, things like that. Your macaroni and cheese. Everybody likes mac and cheese. Stock up on that. And people say, well, how much do I stock up on? I say having 2 weeks of food is pretty much on the shy side. Having a year's worth of food might be a little bit excessive. So somewhere between 2 weeks and a year, and I'd leave that up to the person. How long do you want your family to be self-sufficient?
Right.
I feel 3 months, you're going to be pretty safe. If you want to be a little more aggressive, a little longer than that, nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Shorter than that, it might be on the shy side.
So,
did you ever think that storing food can save you money? Because if you're storing food, say you get 24 cans of tuna fish that you're storing in your supplies for the next outage.
Right.
And you want to rotate your stock. So you're actually using some of these for your normal tuna casseroles, whatever you eat. Then the next time you go to the store, you see, hey, tuna fish is on sale at a good price. So you buy maybe 10 or 12 cans to replenish your stock.
Right.
And you're getting it on sale. So you're getting it at a lower price. So you're rotating your stock and you're replenishing it whenever that item's on sale. Everybody thinks, okay, buying things at the grocery store. Nature provides wonderful food. It's called wild edible plants. This is the time of year in the spring, you might want to take a wild edible and medicinal plant class.
Oh, for sure.
And there's people teaching them throughout the country. And you start in the spring because you get to see what plants are first coming up, and then you can see them develop throughout the season. And there's plants that our grandparents used all the time to substitute for salads, and plants are used for medicines. They can cure poison ivy, they can stop bleeding, they can add,
the other thing that I have to throw out there is don't spray your lawn into this, and don't do it along the roadside or the railroad tracks where they spray, because you want to take a class so you know what you're doing.
Yeah, just so you know. And in fact, in about 2 weeks, the dandelions will be coming up. Now, they're a great food source, but on our Facebook page, Midwest Native Skills Institute, I'm going to be having a recipe so everyone can get the recipe for dandelion wine.
Nice.
So in these times, if you wanted, people were at home, it'd be a nice family project to make some old-fashioned dandelion wine that Grandma used to make. And so I'm going to have that on in about a week. So if anybody watching this wants to make dandelion wine, they can go to our Facebook page and get the recipe. Pretty simple.
Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit today is, and we're going to have to do another session because I have so many questions about this for you, but basic skills. I know for me, when I saw the different ways that you could start a fire, I knew the bow drill was out for me because it's just too physical for me. So I knew I was going to have some equipment like flint and steel, which is, you know, I still struggle with that. That's why I got my match blaster, because fail safe, man, fail safe. And I
In an
started
emergency, use the easiest way you can.
at what age do you start teaching people to start a fire, how to build a debris shelter, how to, let's just go wilderness survival for a minute. But what age do you start teaching people things like that?
Well, if you have kids, you start teaching them at about age 5. And now, of course, at that age, they're not going to be doing physically a lot of the work.
Right.
You're introducing them to the concepts and they're just absorbing it.
Right.
By the time they're 8, they should be able to make their own shelter on their own, start their own fire on their own. And so age 8, they should be self-sufficient. And back in the old days, they would have to be self-sufficient at that age.
Yeah.
So if you're going to introduce them at an early age and have them start assisting when they're 6 and 7, and by the time they're 8, they can do it on their own.
And in the meantime, you're loss proofing them, right? You're telling them, don't panic, sit down, don't move.
And you're making it almost a game. Let them know, okay, this is what would happen and this is the procedure. You're giving them a plan.
Right.
And by the way, your first question was about panic. In a lost situation, if you're in the woods, the easiest way to dispel panic is to start a fire. You ever notice people around a campfire, they just stare into it?
Yeah.
It's a great way to reduce panic, to reduce stress. Just get that fire going, because now you're going to be warm. It's a good way to signal, and it's one of the best ways to reduce stress.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ways to start fire. And we have our video out. We have it. I got a copy here. But this is our 40 ways to start fire without matches, including making fire from ice. We have fire from baggies, fire, if you're a hunter, how to turn your shotgun into a flamethrower. We put them all in here. And just to show people, actually there's 43 ways in there. We didn't want to overpromise, but there's over 40 ways to start fire without matches. And they're all practical. They're not some crazy ways. In your car, you can start fire with the brake fluid and with antifreeze from your car, not mentioning the battery to make sparks, using your headlight reflector. If the sun's out, you can use that to use the sun so there's tons of ways.
Yeah.
Fire's not an issue.
Right.
And usually, unless you're in the desert, water's not an issue. If you walk any direction for a couple miles, there's water. So if you have fire, you can now purify the water you find. You have fire, water, and you can build a shelter. You're going to survive. So being lost isn't a problem.
And if you've got pine trees, you can throw it in the water and you get a little bit of nutrition.
Pine needle tea, you got your vitamin C.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think a lot of people think, okay, so we hike all the time and I take my family and my kids are right there with me. Why would they need to know this?
My God.
Yeah.
First of all, what would happen if you slipped off that hiking trail down a ledge, hurt yourself, maybe knocked yourself out, hit your head? Now your kids are on their own. What happens if your kids, they got to use the bathroom, so they wander off just off the trail? If the woods is dense enough, you walk 10, 15, 20 feet off a trail, you walk back, you didn't walk the right direction, you are now lost.
Especially if you're a little person.
101 reasons.
Yeah, if you're a little person, you can't see as far.
We go up to the North Maine woods on several of our trips, and the forest is dense enough, you literally walk 15 feet into the woods and you don't have a good direction which way the trail was. You could start getting lost, and you start wandering in the wrong direction, and you just keep getting more and more lost.
Well, Tom, we're going to run out of time here, and I do want to talk again, but where can people find you?
Easiest way is on our website. It's survivalschool.com. And we just recently, Wendy, put up a blog. So if they have any questions, just go to our blog, and there's ask some survival questions. So if they write in questions, we'll post them up on the blog, answers to those. There's some questions that people put up, and then we have some articles on there. They can email me at tom@survivalschool.
Okay.
And they can always take a class. We're having our weekend class, and we're going to limit that to 10 people to stay within the government regulations. That's going to be at the end of May. We're having our weekend survival classes. And then naturally, we're going to have our planned classes, keeping it under 10 people. So whoever does take the class will have some pretty individual attention.
Oh, that's fabulous. Okay. And you also have the store. So if somebody wanted to really start getting serious about building some skills, what 3 things should they get a hold of out of the store to get started?
Well, first of all, I think you mentioned it, the blast match. That's a simple device. You just push it down with your hand. It puts out a shower of sparks at 2,300 degrees. It'll light almost any tinder or small material. So that's your fire starter.
Yeah.
And the cost of that is $20, and it'll give you roughly about 2,000 fires. So
Okay.
that's a very inexpensive. You need a water purifier. There's all different types, the pumps, and we have all those on there. My favorite, and I think yours too, is that SteriPen.
Yeah.
And they're inexpensive. They're like $79.
It's
And
just easy, and you know it's going to kill everything in there.
right. And after that, you can be thinking, if you're going to be on the road, you're going to want some kind of tarp, something easy and lightweight. You might think, well, gee, I would prefer a tent. That's getting heavy and bulky. A tarp can be used for a lot of different things. So lightweight, it can be used for a lot of things. So those 3 things, you got your shelter, you got your fire, and you got your water. So those 3 things are the basics.
And I vote for the fire video because everybody wants to know how to start a fire with a pop can. Everybody wants to know that. So
it's in there.
All right. Well, Tom, let's talk again because I could go on for ages about this. I mean,
I'd love to.
Yeah, that sounds great. And thanks for being here today. And we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Bye-bye.